Ice Locked here with Nocturne Gaming, back with more Legends of Idleon, and today we're taking a look at sailing. The sailing skill is unlocked in World 5 and is fairly complicated, so we're going to break it into a few sections. First up will be the map and crew tab. After that, we'll take a look at the loot pile and the trader, which is unlocked using an artifact. From there, we'll take a look at our artifacts and then move on to our active captains and boats that we have. And lastly, we'll take a look at our captain's recruitment area over here once we get to the cruise tab. So first up is your map tab, and this is where your main interactions with the sailing skill happen. There is a lot of information on this tab, so let's go ahead and go over it relatively quickly. First up is the port area in the top left-hand corner, and this is where all of your captains with their boats are stationed until you decide what island to send them to. Simply click and drag your captain to decide which island to go to, and that will start their journey. This starts a progress bar with a timer on it, and this is one way. It also shows you what resource you're gaining from that particular boat and captain. Next up is selecting the island. On this, you can select each island, and this tells you the island name as well as what resource you'll gain from them. Next up is the travel distance, and again, this is a one-way trip. So it is 25 meters to the island and another 25 meters back. There is a minimum time requirement, so each way will require 105 minutes or a total of 210 minutes for this journey. Lastly is your artifacts tab, and there are 3 stages of the artifacts. First up is the black box, which says you have not collected that artifact. After that is the green check mark, which means you've unlocked the artifact with the first bonus. You can get an ancient form of this, which is a lot more rare, about 100 times less of a chance to gain the ancient form, so it may take quite a few trips to unlock that. The ancient form is shown by the yellow check mark, and that will unlock the secondary bonus, which is usually another benefit to the same bonus. The next few things to pay attention to is that each island has a different travel distance. I recommend that you stick with a particular island until you get enough speed on your boats to travel the travel distance in the minimum amount of time. Otherwise, it can take you a lot longer to gain any loot, which will slow your overall progression. The exception to this rule is if you're trying to get to a specific island for a specific artifact that can help increase your loot or your sailing speed. Otherwise, I would stick with the beginner islands until you have enough speed to get back and forth to the beachy coast, for example, in the 4 hours instead of being a day or 2 at a time for each trip back and forth. This is really important at later islands. As you can see, the travel distance does get quite insane. The last thing to talk about on the map section is the clouds. Initially, you'll only start out with the Safari Island until you unlock cloud number 1 or number 2. I can't remember what it says here. But these clouds have the same travel distance, so keep that in mind, that it's still going to take you the same amount of time to get to this island if it's a cloud or if it's the island itself. It is highly recommended that you have enough speed, otherwise you're wasting your time going back and forth to these islands, as if I sent my captains out to Cloud 10 right now, it would take me about a day on a one-way trip. So 2 days to get a single amount of progress, and it's going to take me weeks to be able to unlock Cloud 10 at this point, as I simply don't have fast enough boats yet. The last section to go over in the map tab is your icons over here on the left side. First up is the Show Identity button, and this allows you to see the number of which boat you have, as well as the letter of the captain in that boat. This is really useful as it also shows you those letters and numbers on the crew tab and out on the docks. So you can use that information to decide if your speed on that particular boat is high enough to go to a particular island. Next up is the minimum chest tab or button here, and this allows you to select the minimum chest that you want to go in your loot pile. It's recommended that you keep it on the wooden chest as much as possible, but to do this you want to be checking your game every hour or 2 because you will gain these wooden chests relatively quickly, depending on how fast your boats are back and forth to the island, as pretty much every trip will give a wooden chest. If you're not able to check the game as often or often enough to keep up with it, then it is recommended to move it up to the iron chest or even higher if it's every couple days that you're checking the chest. Lastly is the return ship button, and this is a selection button. It turns it on, and then when you select the ship, it returns it back to the port, and this allows you to reset the journey or to allow you to select a new island to send that captain to. Keep in mind that this does cancel the journey at any point in it, and you gain no loot value from it. So next up is our crew tab, and this is broken down into captains and boats. So let's talk about our captains first. First up is the tier of your captain. There are 6 different tiers of captains, and the basic tier 1 captain is a white pirate with a red bandana on, and then tier 2 moves on to the pink captain with the captain's hat. Tier 3 is this guy right here, and tier 4 is your blue guy. From there, you do have 2 more captains that are relatively higher levels, but the main thing that tiers do for us is increase the maximum value of the benefits that they give. It doesn't change the minimum value, but the maximum does increase. So for example, a tier 1 captain with the white body and red bandana for the boat speed is a minimum of 1% boat speed with a maximum of 4%. The tier 2, or the pink guy right here, has a minimum of 1% as well, but it has a maximum of 11%. So just because it's a higher tier doesn't mean that it will be better, as the chance to roll a particular tier of a captain is completely separate from the roll of each of the different values that you see. So even a tier 6 captain can potentially be worse than a tier 1 captain. The next important thing to talk about is the captain's bonuses. Each captain can have up to 2 bonuses, and if the captain only has 1 bonus on it, I would consider replacing it as soon as possible. There are 5 different bonuses that you can get, starting with boat speed. This is also shown by the green icon in the top corner. Loot value, shown by the treasure pile. Artifact find chance, shown by the little diamonds. Cloud discover rate, shown by the cloud. And lastly, the rare chest chance, shown by the little treasure chest. Each of these traits do have a use if used properly. For a priority system on these traits, I would say first up would be boat speed. Speed is king in sailing, as you simply need more speed to get to higher level islands, to get to and from the islands faster, as more trips means more loot. More loot means you can upgrade your boats faster. In the same sense, loot value is a very close second, as more loot means, again, more upgrades, means more speed, means more loot value, and it allows you to progress through sailing at a faster rate. After that, artifact find chance and cloud discover rate and rare chest chance are all niche categories. Artifact find chance would be my 3rd priority, as you do need to find your artifacts. However, I would only have a few captains with the artifact find chance, simply because once you find all the artifacts, you're not going to need artifact find chance anymore, so I wouldn't invest too heavily into this particular trait. After that would be cloud discover rate, as this will simply allow you to unlock your clouds a little bit faster. As you get enough speed, then you can unlock new islands and get back to using your captains with the speed and loot value. Lastly would be your rare chest chance, and this is something I really only recommend later in the game, as more rare chest chance just allows you more loot value. An exception to this is that rare chests do give you more loot in general, so it can be useful at any point. It's just not something that I would focus into early game. Ideally, my captains would be something like this, with speed and loot value, as this allows me to maximize my benefit without investing too heavily into boat speed, as eventually boat speed won't be needed once my boats are all level 300 or some ridiculous number. The last thing on the captain's page is the trash button. The captains do have to be out of their boats and walking along the docks, such as the captain that I can show you here. My captain is just walking along the dock, so this captain can be trashed. When you trash the captain, it simply is deleted, and you'll need to hire a new captain to replace it, so be careful when you're deciding which captains to trash. A couple other tidbits to mention for the captains are that the levels of the captain is a multiplier for the bonuses that you have. So at level 1, I have 15% rare chest chance on this captain. At level 2, it'll be 30%, and so on and so forth. As you can see, this is a level 10 captain with a base of 4% boat speed, so it is something that I would want to replace relatively soon if I find a better option. Another thing to mention is that you will need to spend quite a bit of gold to unlock later level captains, but you do need a boat for each captain, and different level boats will require different resources, so spending your gold too early if you're not able to upgrade these boats is a waste of your gold because they're not going to go very far for you. So next up is our boats tab, and this is kind of the culmination of our captains plus the upgrades that we'll put into our boats, which we'll look at in just a minute. And this gives us our end result. So this loot value includes the loot value from the boat as well as whatever captains that you have in the boat. So the game does the math for you. The loot value is a multiplier for how much loot you'll get out of a treasure chest that this boat brings back to your loot pile. Next up is your speed, and this is how far your boat travels every hour. So this travels roughly 200,000 meters per hour, and our goal is to look for something that will travel that in the minimum amount of time. So the minimum time here is 105 minutes and 300,000 meters. I travel 200,000, so in a little under 2 hours I'll get the full 300,000 meters traveled, which allows me to get a treasure chest every 4 hours or so, a little under 4 hours. But if I sent it to an island like this, it would take roughly 5 hours each way, meaning around a 10-hour round trip to gain a single loot chest. So goal would be to find an island that the speed that our boat can travel in under the minimum amount of time. Lastly is your artifact odds chance, and your artifact odds chance is again a simple multiplier for how often you'll get a artifact from a loot chest that this boat brings back. Every boat has different numbers, so you'll get different multipliers to the loot and artifacts that you gain. If we click the green upgrade button in the top right hand corner, it'll allow you to see the upgrades that are available to your boats by spending the resources we gained in sailing. Each of these boats do require different resources to upgrade their different values. So for boat 1 it requires gold to upgrade loot and speed, but for boat 2 it requires gold to upgrade loot and the safari fruits to upgrade the speed on boat 2. One of my big recommendations here is to ignore boat 2, 3, and 4 until much later, simply because you'll need to spend all of your gold upgrading boat 1 to get the most value out of your gold, and then spending your safari fruits that you gain on boat 5 to upgrade the loot value here. This will allow you to have the most effective use of your resources until much later in the game when you can spend a few thousand without worrying about it too much. I did ignore my own advice here early in the game because I wasn't aware of this, but that is the most effective use until you can spend a few thousand without worrying about it. One other thing to mention is that there are different breakpoints when you're upgrading these values. So if we look at boat 2 here, I upgraded this to show you that if I spend the resources to upgrade one more time, I'm gaining a roughly 5,000 benefit to my loot value. But one upgrade in this particular boat is only worth 200 more loot value. Every 8 levels that you upgrade will give you this large jump to your stats, but this is separate for loot and speed. So 8 levels in loot is worth a lot, but if you put 3 in loot and 5 in speed, those are completely different breakpoints. So you will need to do 8 individual levels in this particular stat to get to that breakpoint. So if we look at speed as well, I'm gaining roughly 30,000 speed for one upgrade versus 2,000 speed on this boat for roughly the same amount of resources. So 2 more upgrades on this and I'll also get the big jump on that boat. So while we're talking about our boats and captains, keep in mind that you can switch which boat you have your captain in by selecting the boat and clicking the white box to remove them from the boat. And then you can simply select which captain you want to go back into those particular boats. And for our last section with the captains, we're going to talk about the captain recruitment area. The captain recruitment area is how we hire new captains. This is reset every day at your daily reset. So it is something that you'll need to check back regularly to find the best captains that you can. Early game, it may take you several days to hire enough captains, as the pillars are unlocked based on level. You'll have one pillar at first, level 15 will unlock the second, level 25 for the third, and level 35 for the fourth. So as you level up, you'll get more choices each day. However, the tier of the captain is completely random, so you can get anywhere from tier 0 through tier 6. So that's a completely random factor. Next up is the traits that the captain has are completely random, so you can get any of the 5 choices on either of the slots. And lastly, the value of that trait is also random. So it's a lot of RNG to get a good captain. The only thing that's kind of set in stone is the value of the captain. To hire it, it is going to cost a set amount of gold. The higher the tier, the more gold it costs to hire the captain. So taking a look at this particular tier 3 captain, we have 9% boat speed, which isn't great for his level. It can be all the way up to 18% boat speed for a tier 3 captain, and 21% on your cloud discover rate is not bad, but it can be all the way up to 31%. So overall, I would say a fairly useless captain, but it can be good if that's the best that you have so far. Looking at the Tier 2 captain here, you can see that we've got even worse rolls. This is kind of how it works, but the cloud discover rate on this can be much higher even for the Tier 2 captain. This is a captain I would completely avoid, as 2 times on the cloud discover rate is not useful, as you will probably need the speed to get to those further clouds than you will need this much cloud discover rate. Moving on to the third choice, we have loot and artifact find chance. These are really low value rolls here. I mean, the values are even less than my tier 2 captain, so another trash captain. And lastly, we have a decent roll here on a tier 5 captain, and this has 34% loot value. For a tier 5 can be up to 55%, but overall a pretty good loot value chance, and the rare chest find chance can be up to 22%. Overall, I would say this is a really good captain. However, I prefer having speed on it versus having loot and rare chance, so it's something I'm not going to waste my gold on. For our next section, we're going to be looking at the loot pile, and this is where we gain all of the loot from our treasure chest, where we open our chest, and we'll go over the chest in just a minute, but the loot pile is where it shows what resources we have. At the top is our gold bars. This we can gain from any island. It's our very basic resource that we gain from basically any treasure chest. After that, each line is a new island. So the Safari Island gives you the Safari Fruit, plus it has a chance at the rare resource from that island. So you have the palm tree and the twin palm tree and so on and so forth. So the rare resources are just a resource that is rare to find. But starting from boat 6, you'll need these rare resources to upgrade the speed on the later boats. So boat 6, 7, 8, 9 will require 6, 7, 8, and 9. And as we get to later boats, these resources can be harder to obtain, and you'll need to spend more and more time on particular islands to level up the next boat. Moving on to our treasure chest, we have different levels of treasure chests, starting with the wooden chest, moving on to the iron, to the gold, and there's several levels of chests. The miracle chest is the highest chest. It's very rare to find, or you can buy the 3 of these every day in the gem shop, but it does give you a large value of the treasure that you can potentially find. One other thing to mention is that each tier of chest gives you another roll of resources. So a wooden chest will only give you 1 roll on a resource, meaning you'll get either gold or you'll get the resource from the island. But on an iron chest, you can have 2 rolls, so you can get either 2 of the resources, so 2 safari fruits, you can get 2 gold piles, or you can get some gold and a safari fruit. So having the rarer chest does give you more loot overall. If you can get more wooden chest, you gain more loot, but if you can't check as often, then getting these iron chests will give you more value from your time spent AFK. So we'll go ahead and open some chests here. This does give you the value that you gain from that treasure, and I gained 2 piles of gold and 3 piles of the resource, so I gained quite a bit of the stone here to upgrade my boats. On the next chest, this is from the Lollipop Island, so I have a chance at an artifact less than 1% and a decent treasure value. So with an iron chest, I get 2 rolls. I got 2 gold bars, not a big deal. And the gilded chest is our next level, so we should gain 3 different rolls here. So 3 different gold piles, and this gives you the value of your treasure as well as the artifact find chance from this particular treasure chest. So you'll just basically open these up each day as you collect your treasures, and hopefully you gain the artifacts that you're looking for, as well as plenty of resources to keep upgrading your boats to gain more the next day. While we're talking about the loot pile, I feel I should mention the trader. This is a really good way to gain excess gold by selling a random resource to the trader. The trader does require a specific amount of a specific resource to give you a decent amount of gold. The trader is unlocked from the Emerald Relic, which you can get from the Isolated Woods Island, and this can give you quite a bit more gold, which can allow you to upgrade boat number 1 to higher levels, and even unlock more pirate slots or boat slots to get more pirates out there sailing. The other thing is you'll need gold for a couple other things. I believe one of the alchemy bubbles needs gold, and I know one of the divinity statues requires gold to level up. So gold is an important resource, and this is another way to gain a little bit more from unneeded resources, especially as you level up boats. You may just have a little bit excess sitting around after you level up your boats for the day. For our next section, I want to talk about the relics, also known as artifacts, and these relics give you big benefits throughout the entire game. Once you find them on the island, they're always applied, but there are a few that are particularly useful for sailing. The first one to mention is the tusk, and this is found relatively early, but it gives you more artifact find chance per sailing level. This at ancient form also doubles this bonus, and as you can see, I'm gaining another 100% artifact find chance just for having this relic unlocked. The next one to mention is the genie lamp, and this gives you more loot value from your sailing chest per sailing level. Another great bonus, and it's highly recommended to unlock this genie lamp as soon as possible. I may not worry about getting the ancient form so early, but as soon as you can, I would definitely at least unlock the base form until you have enough speed to unlock the ancient form relatively quickly. And the last one that directly affects sailing is the 10 AD tablet, and this gives you more sailing speed for every 10 items found after 500 in the slab. So this is a way to gain a lot more sailing speed for basically playing the game. All of the other benefits that you get from these artifacts are huge, doubling your bonuses from the shrines and allowing them to be placed anywhere, more printer samples, and more post office boxes are just a few examples. Some of the big ones are things like the Fury Relic to get more max talent book level at the library, which changes the game entirely if you can get more overall levels in your talents. So that's pretty much it for how sailing works. So we'll talk about the different bonuses throughout the worlds. In World 1 we have the stamp, particularly the sailboat stamp, which gives you a benefit to your sailing speed, and this bonus is doubled by using the laboratory bonus in World 4. You also have the statue bonuses in World 1 to give you another small bump to your overall sailing speed, but keep in mind you will need to unlock the golden statue by spending a few Dementia coin to make this benefit account wide. Moving on to World 2, we have the alchemy benefits, namely the Sailor at Heart bubble, which is a large bubble. It does need to be equipped, but this does give you a really good gain, which is that it can give you a chance to gain more sailing progress whenever you collect AFK gains. One of the ways to maximize the benefit out of this is to log into one character at a time and checking your sailing progress in between to allow you to gain more overall sailing progress and collect the most chests each day. Keep in mind this is a small chance, so it may not proc on every character, so pay attention whenever you're collecting your AFK gains if you're using this bubble. The other bubble is the yellow bubble called the Bodhi bubble, and this just gives you a flat bonus to your sailing speed, and it's at a fairly good rate. However, it does require quite a few of your gaming pixels, so this may be relatively hard to level up depending on how your progress in gaming is. Also in Alchemy, you do have 2 vials that are relatively useful, starting with the OJ Juice to give you more sailing speed. Keep in mind that this is also doubled by the laboratory bonus in World 4, but it is a really good bonus for relatively cheap. You also have the Hamster Drippy, which gives you more sailing EXP gain. However, the hamsters are relatively rare drops, so keep in mind that this is a way to spend those if you're looking for more overall sailing EXP. Also in World 2, we do have the post office, which does have a new box if you've unlocked it using the sailing. One of the artifacts does unlock a new post office crate, which gives you more AFK count for your sailing and a few other random bonuses that don't quite do a whole lot for us, but it is worth mentioning for the AFK counts. However, that's a lot of boxes to spend for a very small gain. And moving on to World 4, as there's no active benefits currently in World 3, but in the dinner menu you can unlock the popped corn, which gives you 2% sailing speed per plate level of your popped corn. And moving on to World 5, we've already talked about the sailing benefits from the artifacts. However, we do get some bonuses from Divinity. Starting with the goat statue, we can get 4% sailing speed per level as a passive blessing. This does require gaming bits to level up, but it is a decent bonus for us to grab a hold of. And lastly, we have the Permep statue. This gives us two different bonuses to sailing. First is by linking one character to the Permep statue, you can get 22.7% boat sailing speed. This bonus is affected by your level in Divinity, so I would have this linked to one of your higher level Divinity characters. The other benefit is also from its blessing, and it gives us around 3% sailing speed per level, and it only requires coins to level up. So depending on how much money you gain, this can be another really good benefit to your overall sailing speed. For our last benefit to sailing, we have 4 new talents for the newly updated Siegebreaker class. And the 4 talents that we have are first, Unending Loot Search. This gives us 2 benefits. The first is it allows our chests in our loot pile to be upgraded, meaning you can't gain more chests, but if you have a wooden chest already in your loot pile, if your captains bring back a better chest, it can be upgraded to an iron chest or a gilded chest, for example. And the second thing is it gives you more value from your chest loot. So with 100 points in here, I'm gaining roughly 35% more chest loot. Next up, we have the Expertly Sailed. This gives us more sailing EXP for all of our characters. Sailing is a shared level anyway, but we gain more overall sailing EXP, which can upgrade the value that we gain from our artifacts that are based on sailing level. After that is Captain Pep Talk, which gives you more Captain EXP. This means we can level our captains faster, and more captain levels is more of a multiplier to the bonuses that our captains give. And lastly, we have Archlord of the Pirates, which gives us more EXP and drop rate per power of 10 kills for plunderous mobs. Plunderous mobs come from using the pirate flag, so you need to actively play on your Siegebreaker to get more plunderous mobs kills, and that will allow you to gain more EXP and drop rate. And this applies to all of your characters again. 2 really important things to mention for your Siegebreaker class is first, these 4 sailing skills need to be on an active talent preset, meaning you can't have them on a secondary preset and expect them to work. They need to be on your active preset, and that will allow these benefits to be active all the time. The second thing to mention is your Siegebreaker does have a family bonus, which gives you faster minimum boat travel time. At base, it's 2 hours. With my Siegebreaker, I currently have 12.4% faster time, which brings it down to 105 minutes versus 120 minutes. So leveling up your Siegebreaker and having these talents active will hugely increase your overall sailing gains. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button if you're enjoying this type of content, and a huge shout out to our Patreon members that support the work we do. Thank you from all of us here at Nocturne Gaming. If you would like to become a patron and get some added benefits, check out the link in the description. If you have any thoughts, comments, or questions, please leave them down below for me, and we'll see you next time.